Howdy, I'm Charles, the animal caretaker here at Filbert Street Garden. I'm mostly a beekeeper that takes a lot of rescue animals. Today we're going to be going over a bunch of different types of habitat for the different animals you can have in Baltimore City. The ones we don't have, rabbits and pigs, we'll talk a little bit about them and what you need for them. I think the first question is, why animals? Well, keeping animals can be very rewarding. Everything from companionship down to food production. The things that we can get from each animal we'll talk about, but like for example, for our chickens here, they are pets that make breakfast because they make us a generous amount of eggs. With the 40 birds we have here, because we have about 20 chickens and 20 ducks, we produce 3,800 eggs a year, most of which go to our curbside pantry and go to the community. If you just have a handful of birds, they tend to lay every other day, but we'll get to that. With each and every animal, there are risks and rewards, which we'll discuss. Everything from, what are the downsides? Like, okay, there's a salmonella risk, or let's say with ducks, they're going to turn their habitat into a mud hole. Versus the rewards of, what do they produce and where do you get them? We'll discuss that. And we're also going to discuss responsible animal husbandry. Fun fact, I'm the guy that animal control calls in the city to come look at livestock situations by animal control to tell them if there's anything bad there. Please, please, please don't let me come visit you. Like, if you want some assistance, call and we'll exchange pictures, or I'll come take a peek and give you some advice. Please don't have animal control be the one that has to have me come down there and look. The first one we're going to talk about, fowl. In fact, let me make sure that I have an area for... Okay, we're going to talk about fowl first. The first thing, when I refer to fowl, I'm specifically meaning chickens, because technically you cannot have turkeys or ducks in the city of Baltimore. There is an exception to that rule if you are a non-profit community garden that has an educational purpose. That is the only exception to that rule. My key advice would be to most people, don't get ducks. They're very gross. I love mine, but they are gross. They will turn every habitat into something nasty. But as you can see, we have about 20 chickens here, and we have a free range of chickens going. For feeding chickens, they primarily eat chicken feed. Chicken feed is pretty inexpensive, but you got to have a place you can get it. You can have it delivered to you by Amazon these days, which it has, I think, about a 25% markup doing that. I would know where your closest Tractor Supply is, or places that you can buy chicken feed from, because you can't get it from Walmart and that. Don't try other things like going and buying big things of bird seed. Your birds will get malnutrition and die on you. A common thing that happens here in the city, unfortunately. I would make sure that with in fact, here's a key piece of information for any animal you get. Do research on them, watch YouTube videos, find out the most common ailments of them. Don't just spur the moment, see some ducklings or some chicks at the feed store and be like, oh, I'm going to get them. Because a lot of people do, and that's why I have a lot of animals here, to be very frank. So they are pennies to feed, and they produce a hell of a lot more than they consume. But we'll talk about housing, and that tends to be the thing that costs a little bit more. There are requirements and restrictions for roosters. For chickens, you'll find all requirements inside of the, I think it's on the last page here. Yes, right here. This is the exotics regs for Baltimore City. It goes over the amount of square footage per chicken, the lot size you have to have, the type of coop you have to have. Always refer to that for, what do I need size-wise per bird. They also have a few exemptions in there for community gardens and organizations like that, where you can actually have more birds than a typical resident can. Don't spoil that privilege and get it revoked for all of us. One of the big restrictions is roosters. Can't have a rooster in Baltimore City. Our roosters are here under perpetual rooster probation. Should one resident call and complain, they have to go. Animal control knows they're here. It's good to have a great relationship with animal control. But you can see one of the things roosters do is crow. That was a very manly crow, sir. That wasn't pathetic at all. Not at all. But we have 4 little miniature roosters running around. Roosters can be very problematic. If you have too many hens and or if you have too few hens or too many roosters, they will hurt your girls. They will overmate them and it's bad. On top of it, roosters can be very defensive. Like there's ones that'll attack the people that feed them for coming close to the chicken area because they're defending their hens. There's not much perk of having them. You don't need them to have eggs. You may want them to kind of reduce and make your girls happy, because that's what a lot of ours do. But there's not really many perks to having them at all. In areas where you have predators, they're kind of the sacrificial bird. They're the ones that run up and confront the fox while all the others run and hide. That's their job, essentially. But you really don't need them. 2, for habitat, you can see that we have, come and follow me now. If you don't pet that turkey, she's going to get really upset. In fact, I like standing here because you can actually look into the house right now and see the birds in there laying eggs. Habitat. You're going to need 2 things primarily for a chicken. One, they need a coop. You need to have a coop that's the right size for the number of birds you have, which is why we have 2 of them. But still, most of our birds try to get into the one big coop there. If you're somebody that's dabbling in chickens, but thinking, you know, if this goes well, I'll get more in the future, it's better to have a bigger coop than 2 small coops. Mine, I built this one 9 years ago out of all scrap wood and plywood I found on the side of the road. I did the trim with pallet slats and then gave it a good paint job. But as we move to the new habitat, because the chicken habitat's moving over there, and I'm building new walls with better drainage and doing, I'm going to use hardware cloth instead of this so wild birds can't go in, because wild birds can bring communicable disease. But I'm sorry, I went ahead of myself. You need a coop. The coop itself needs to be nice and sturdy to where a predator can't smash on in. It's good to have a door on it that you close every night. There are such things as automated doors like we have here. The other thing you need is what is called a chicken run. This whole area inside of here is the chicken run. Sometimes it's a little caged area attached to the coop. You're going to need that. You may say, I'll have free-range birds all the time. Well, you can't have them out all the time. In fact, there'll be times in the morning you don't want them out because the fox may show up. So you have to have some type of chicken run, and it has to be sized to about how many chickens you have. I like to think of 2 to 4 square feet per bird. Like, you got to have something. You can see the little houses in here. These little dog houses here are duck houses. The ducks do still prefer, even in the coldest weather, to sleep in the center on the cement. However, they do have to have shelter should they desire it. On top of it, they like to lay their eggs in there. Now, for the habitat, you want to keep it clean. You want to put fresh bedding in there all the time, which you want to use pine bedding. Cedar is bad for their lungs, and you don't want to use straw. Straw is really bad as bedding. It's really bad as litter. Litter is the word I'm looking for. You can see we have the little pine pieces inside of there, and inside all the habitats. They keep things nice and dry, because any animal habitat, you want to keep it nice and dry. It impedes bacteria that way. They're going to spend also a lot of time in that coop once the days become shorter in autumn and through winter. And as long as it's dark, they stay inside. Malcolm X had the very infamous quote of a chicken comes home to roost. Well, it's a damn good metaphor because it works. Anytime that it is dusk or it starts to get dark, they put themselves away 100% of the time, unless something happened to them. That's why automatic doors work really well that you can set on a timer. The habitat needs to be secure, and we'll talk about that in a second of why. But the next one is breeds. You can see all our chickens are very different. have a very diverse flock. There are miniature breeds, which they call bantams, and regular sized breeds. You can see over there with the floof on her head that's cream colored, that's care hen. She's a Polish chicken. And this one with the that's black with the copper neck is a black copper Moran, and right next to him is the black one that's fuzzy is a silky. There are hundreds of breeds of chicken. Many of them, it's just ornamental how different they are, but a lot of them have strengths and weaknesses too. Like some ones, like the silkies, they're bad layers, but they're really good mothers. They go broody very easily, and they love hatching eggs. So you can give any eggs to them. In fact, they'll steal eggs to hatch if they so are inclined, because chickens are a communal layer. They don't care if the eggs are theirs. On top of it, you have ones like the Easter eggers over there, the white one Hedwig and the brown one Moana, who they lay green eggs. They can lay green, blue, so they provide an ornamental thing. There are ones like the Rhode Island Reds in here, which are a cold hardy breed. That one right there, so they do better in cold conditions. Some of them lay different colored eggs. Some of them lay more eggs than ones, like the yellow bird over there, the Buff Orpington. They are a breed that lays a lot more eggs than others. So you'll find there's a whole bunch of different functions for different breeds, and some you may want just because they look neat. Some you may want because they provide different characteristics. It's all about what you want in the flock. On top of it, there are ones that are meat birds like Cornish. What was I going to say? I can say this, that you'll see we have a very diverse flock. That helps me because I can always keep a track of who's limping or who might be a little sick, and I can keep really good notes. That's very helpful. If you have like all Rhode Island Reds, it's a little harder. So you'll want to have like leg bands that have different colors or something. That way you can tell your bird apart. You can also tell, who's the one always getting picked on? Oh, it's green leg again. Or who's the bully? It's pink leg. Like, yeah. On top of it, one of the reasons you need to keep a very secure coop is because of predators. And chickens have all sorts of predators which will kill them, and some are more devastating than others. Of course, hawks are a very popular one, especially for your bantams. They'll swoop down, kill them on impact, and try to eat them right there. I think we haven't had a hawking in a few years because of the goats. I suspect that the hawks think they're dogs, so they don't want to come down and risk it. On top of it, we also have where we have these owl statues around the garden. I think one's over here somewhere. The owl statues are kind of like scarecrows that tell them, hey, there's an owl down here, don't come down and play. Because the enemy of the red-tailed hawk is the horned owl. So you just got to move them every few days or they get wise. Are you here for the class today or just to wander?
We're running late. Sorry.
Oh, okay, no problem. Come get a handout. We're talking about chickie habitats.
Awesome.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Another one is the black-headed vulture. Not vultures typically, but if they have a black head to them, they've been known to sometimes eat bantams and chicks. Like typically vultures, they don't care, but sometimes. Raccoons are a very vicious killer. They'll usually only kill 1 or 2 birds when they do, but they can actually figure out clasps on doors and stuff like that. So don't depend on that to secure your coop. Like set a lock on there or something, like, because they have the 5 digits and they're very clever creatures. On top of it, minks are another one. We don't have much of an issue of them in this part of Maryland. I'm not sure there are minks in the city here. One of your most dangerous ones is the fox, because the fox kills everybody. The fox is a spree killer. It will kill every bird it can and then try to bury them nearby and then come for them one at a time over many nights. The fox are very clever and they can get into things. We have one here. Thankfully, we're in a place where typically the fox won't show up past 8 a.m. It won't come out before 9 p.m. So our door is set to just after dusk. Like that's when the birds will go in. If I was in a little bit more of a rural area, like I was over in Anne Arundel County or up in Baltimore County, I would anticipate that the fox will come during the day, and then you couldn't free range the birds like this. Or at least without some type of protection animal like a sheepdog. You got to train a dog specifically not to chase chickens, because they all want to do it. But they're a really good way of keeping certain predators away. Weasels as well, once again, not a thing we typically have in the city, but they are a killer. And dogs. Dogs tend to be a big one, especially if you have an area with a lot of strays. It's one of the reasons why it's good we have fencing here, because there are occasionally stray dogs that come through this area. And once again, they'll spree kill all your chickens and then look at you happily like, hey, look what I got. Like, because they're that dumb. Now, there are many perks to chickens. And ducks have a lot of these same ones too. The perks are eggs. A chicken in the first 2 years will produce an egg every other day. They are very solid layers. With our 40 birds here, we produce 3,800 eggs a year.
Wow.
On top of it, some people will keep them for meat, and there are better birds than others. Some of them, like the black Australorps or the like Chuckbird there, the Buff Orpingtons or Rhode Island Reds, they're what is called a utility bird, where they're a little good at all those things. They're not the best, like a Cornish is the biggest one for meat, but they're a good egg layer, they're a good meat bird. Remember though, you cannot butcher animals in Baltimore City. You'll have to take them somewhere outside the city or to a butcher in the city. You cannot butcher them here. Please don't, because I don't want another call where there's 30 chicken carcasses that somebody dumped in an alley. Like, because it happens, and once again, they call me for these investigations. Please don't do it. That's a dick move. Pardon my language. On top of it, compost is another good one because their manure doesn't really burn very hot. On top of it, they've actually made this ground a lot less toxic. We have higher levels of metal toxicity over here, not the toxic levels, but it did borderline it about 8 years ago. Every year, Johns Hopkins and Farm Alliance comes and tests our soil. Ever since we added the chickens, they introduced nitrogen to the soil with their manure. Every year, the metal numbers go down more and more, all because these birds defecate on the ground. They literally make the ground here healthier and nicer. Your main concern there is stepping on manure, which is if you have chickens, say goodbye to being barefoot in your backyard. But the compost, you got to have somewhere to put your manure that you do produce. We compost it here. On top of it, pest control, they're actually really good at that, because the best mouser you'll ever have is a chicken. Best mouser you'll ever have. They're very good at eating up mice. They don't sadistically torture them like cats do. They just quickly gobble them up and move on. Now, there's nothing they can do about rats, and rats can be a predator of theirs. If you have bad rat problems, you will probably want to invest in getting a barn cat from Barks's working cat program. Like, we installed our two working cats in the goat barn and their little shelf, and you bind them to the space over 2-3 weeks. Pumpkin Spice here was originally a very vicious cat. Like, I got the scar on my hand to prove it in the antibiotic shots, but she's actually very loving now. Sometimes they turn around, sometimes they don't, but even if it's a shy cat, it will stay in that area once you bind it and once you start feeding them. But they're very good at running rats out of the garden, even if they're not great at killing them. They'll also hold down the area and keep other feral cats out. All right, that is chickens, which counts fowl and waterfowl. Did anyone have any questions before I move to the next animal?
How much time would you say, like, for chickens, like, what time would you start doing morning care, evening care, food care?
It all depends on your setup. Like, if you don't have an automatic door, for example, that lets them out, then every morning, every evening, you're gonna come close the door. Always do, because it can mean their lives if you don't. That's also very helpful if you go on vacation or something. On top of it, like, this is our big feeder that has about 15 days worth of food in it. It's also fairly rat proof. It has the ports on it. Another big thing to be concerned about is with their feed as well. You want to avoid feeding rats because having these types of animals with feed available doesn't attract them. Some people will know how much the chickens eat and just leave that much food for them every day. But if I have a big thing like this, I don't have to feed them for 15 days now. You can have a water barrel for them as well, where it has little nipples that they hit. That water barrel, you can have a 30-day supply in there. It used to be where I came and visited them every other day. But because I have ducks, I have to walk those ducks in every evening, or one of my volunteers does. So yeah, like if I had just chickens, they would be mostly automated. I would say that you're going to want to change the bedding in summer every 2 weeks at the most. Putting fresh bedding in there or fresh litter. In winter, you're going to want to do it once a week because they're in there a hell of a lot more and they're defecating more. There's also different litter methods. Like I'm a big fan, because I'm partly lazy, of deep litter method, where I'll just keep putting new layers on for a few weeks and then pulling it off, because I actually like that it's decomposing under there and producing heat for the coop. It also I also find it breaks down easily when we compost it, when it has a little bit more chips in it than manure. But different way to do it. That's called deep litter method. But it all depends on how you set it up. Like you can automate chickens very well. Ducks you cannot. You can have a door that lets them out, but once again you have to walk them back in. Yeah, and once again, my key piece of advice is don't get ducks. Don't get ducks. They're mischievous, terrible creatures. If I want to put them away and it's raining, they're running around all happy because they love the rain. And it's like, now I got to shoo you guys in. You guys are jerks. I got to the point where I could follow them and clap and the ducks will go in, but yeah. You remember that the chickens will put themselves away. But remember, if you let them out in the day, it's really hard to get them back in. They're like, we'll go in when we want. Yes. Any more chicky questions?
Is there a breed that you recommend that's very friendly?
Buff Orpington and Silkies are the friendliest birds you'll ever meet. But no, Silkies, if you're going to get Silkies, you probably want to do a whole flock of them in different colors. Because they're a very docile bird and they always end up in the lower end of the pecking order. Because remember, chickens are ruthless. They will bully each other and they establish rank. Like Tinkerbell's running around here and we'll bump into her. She's top chicken here. Goldie is kind of her lackey. The golden Wyandotte right there. Oh, yep, there's Tinkerbell right there. She's a black one with pixie dust in her feathers. That's standing right there watching us. Yeah, the black one. That's Tinkerbell. She's a sturdy bird. I've seen her beat the hell out of other birds for getting in front of her when she eats. And they will turn on their best friend if it means they become top bird. Like it's just their nature. They're ruthless. It's one of the few perks of ducks. Ducks aren't jerks like that. Ducks, if you introduce another duck, they're like, oh, new duck. They're cool about it. Any other chicky questions? Chicky.
Yeah, how much like scraps can you like mix with feed?
Oh, hell yeah, you can. I wouldn't give them potatoes or sweet potatoes or onions or radishes. I'd look at the things you can get them as scraps, but they love them. Chickens even love chicken because they're cannibalistic creatures. Which, by the way, in most animal husbandry, if like a goat dies in a field or a cow, they stay as far away from it as possible. Evolution has set them up to go, okay, what killed that might kill me, I should stay away from it. Chickens, you better get that dead chicken out of the habitat before they start eating them. And they'll do it to their best friend. They're like, oh, my buddy, I'm going to do this the most respectful way possible. Like some people won't give them chicken. I tend not to, but it's not the worst thing in the world. They're already going to eat each other. They're a jungle bird. That's what they do. They originally come from the red jungle fowl of Southeast Asia. They don't let meat go to waste over there. But you can give them lots of scraps and they love them. Just don't leave standing scraps for too much and attract rodents. Like, and here's the thing, like, you can't overfeed a chicken because they stop eating when they have too much in them. In fact, to do meat birds, they have to crowd them so they really can't move around, and they have to actually put stuff in the chicken. Like they'll grease the chicken feed and stuff like that to give them 40 calories. And they have certain breeds like Cornish that just gain weight very fast. Any other chickie questions?
If we're getting it for a place for an NGO that would like during the week would have many people there,
Yeah.
but then the weekend we're looking more into like automatic stuff. So how is that for them to initially start out with tons of people around them and then suddenly have no one over the weekend?
That means nothing to them.
Okay.
I could die tomorrow and they wouldn't care.
Okay.
So long as somebody comes and fills their feeders. Like these guys do like me because I toss them corn and stuff, but they'll move on. They're not like other animals. But here's the thing: never have a chicken alone. They always got to be in a flock, just like the goats. Remember, they evolved in a way where being alone means they're gonna die. They're a herd animal. Like they will literally have anxiety, and it cuts their longevity in half. Like you can't have these birds alone. It's cruel. There's no amount of human companionship you can give them to overcome that. Just never have them alone. As long as they have other birds, they'll be fine. Other chickie questions? Chickens live about 7 to 8 years. Yeah. Remember though, when they get sick, they can really drop dead at the drop of a hat for next to no reason. It's mostly because they will hide if anything's wrong with them, because they don't want to lose their rank. So when a bird starts showing symptoms, they show up hard. It's because they can't hide it anymore.
So if they do get sick or something like this, you take them to the normal vet, and also what?
You have to have a vet that takes exotics. I recommend home vets. Dr. Wolf does an excellent job. There's also Davidsonville vet as well. Dr. Peralta does an excellent job as well. You can bring in exotics like that. And they're used to dealing with consumption.
And like budget-wise, like I know you can't say each one is different, but to get an idea, is it like how much would you recommend per year? Like setting aside.
I would say have a $200 vet budget aside, and it's all about what you. Yeah, I'll say this though. Remember, that's a $4 bird and a $200 vet bill for. I don't mean to be cruel, but I would never have one neglected. I'd always try to give them some treatment. I would find out what the most common ailments are, like bumblefoot and lice and those things, and you check for them routinely. If you start having one sick, you'll have the antibiotic you need on hand. Most of your care is going to be self-care for them, because most of the time there's very little the vet can do for them. Usually by the time they get bad, they're done. The vet's just going to put them down for you, which is a good, dignified way to go. The times we've had to use the vet are Buster the rooster. He had a bad case of bumblefoot I couldn't cure. His tomb is that statue over there with the other one, the metal one. He passed away at 8 years old, a nice long life for a rooster. He is in Rooster Valhalla right now. He almost got killed twice fighting off the fox to defend his girls. And he finally had a clean bill of health after we dealt with a bad case of bumblefoot he had. But he had a big lump on his neck that turned out to be cancer, and we had to put him down. I wish he could have enjoyed his retirement a little longer, because he was living in the quarantine yard at my house with a couple of his favorite girls that I got here, Moana and Silver. Like, I miss my buddy. Buster was good people. He never chased a person, was brave. So he's in Rooster Valhalla right now with the other warrior roosters, with his T-Rex ancestors. But yes. Any other chickie questions? Chickie.
Oh, you mentioned salmonella.
Yes. Some birds can potentially have it. You just want to make sure that you wash your hands every time that you handle your birds or clean up after your birds. I remember Fox News had this thing where they were making fun of the CDC for like putting out this memorandum that talked about washing your hands with backyard chickens and don't kiss your chickens, and they're like, this is so stupid, and making fun. That's where most salmonella cases in the country come from, backyard chickens and people cuddling and kissing their chickens. Yeah, it's a very real concern. Not very few birds have salmonella, but always clean up because it's not worth getting it. I had it as a boy. It's some of the sickest I've ever been in my life. Had to go to the hospital, was defecating blood. It's no fun. And I was a young man then. I'd hate to get it as an adult. This is Silver. Any other chicky questions? Chicky. Oh, and let's say you have a garden. Keep them out of your garden. That way they're not defecating and doing plants in there. I'll even show you something we do. In fact, let me walk you over there and show you. We've been experimenting on ways to help people in Baltimore City maintain both a garden and keep chickens. Because typically you can only do one or the other because the chickens will destroy your garden. Ask me how I know. We built this guy here as an experiment, and it worked really well last year. You can build a simple little cover for your raised bed, and this is pretty effective at keeping the chickens out. It's easy to lift, so this will let you have both. Oh, girl, go elsewhere. That's Harley. She's a Harlequin duck. And those are 3 of the miniature ducks, which are like a little roving street gang.
You're so cute.
Those are called call ducks, which I highly recommend never having. Highly. Because they are like a little, I thought that, man, I really hope that the big birds, the big chickens don't pick on, excuse me, the big ducks don't pick on them. If that happens, all the little ducks, all 10 of them will gang up on them. They're like a little street gang. Like they really are. But this allows you to have both. You'll also see that some of the chickens are rubbing themselves around in the dirt like they're having a seizure. They're dust bathing because that's how they bathe. They get dryness onto their fur and it kills the lice that they have. Remember, people can't get chicken lice. You can't get the pests from them. Lice are species specific, meaning that the lice that the ducks have, they can't give to the chickens or vice versa. They're actually far enough apart they can't pass diseases to one another either. That turkey badly wants you to pet her.
Is that all right?
Yeah. She won't bite you. Next, we're gonna talk about goats. Everybody ready to go meet some goats?
Yeah.
Some goats, and if you see goats on Reddit, you have to get them upvote. You can get them what's called sacks, where they can send you 90% certain female ones. I wouldn't do that because 50-50, they could be either gender and you're gonna have to get rid of those boys. Like sincerely, there's you can't have roosters in Baltimore City. You can't have too many of them if you do have roosters. So get your birds sexed, or at least buy adults. Like the Maryland Poultry Swap is at the end of this month. Yes, you can go buy adult birds there that you already know the gender of. It's a great place to go because they have a lot of different farm animals and crafts and stuff. It's a fun event. Like I go every year. Like I made sure my calendar was clear. Hey girl. These are 2 half-sisters. This is Bree and that's Winter. Well, what we have here are Nigerian dwarf goats. Here in the city of Baltimore, you can have miniature goats, which those are 2 breeds. They are pygmies and Nigerian dwarf goats. They both come from the West African pygmy goat. You can't have regular sized goats here, but they do have crossbreeds with miniatures. Like they have Pygoras, which are a mix between a pygmy and an Angora goat. So they're shaggy goats that you can like trim and get fiber from. You'll find that we do have a couple sheep here. You can't have sheep in the city without that community garden exception that you have to apply to animal control to get. You also aren't supposed to have horns on your goats in Baltimore City. Once again, that's one of those things that animal control did give us a pass on because we took a lot of them. When you get them as babies, you can get them, buy ones that are disbudded. It's where they cauterize the tips. They're also polled goats where they're just bred not to have horns. There are a lot of good reasons to take their horns. They can get their head stuck in fences. They can use their horns like levers to pry up fencing and escape. Ask me how I know. They can occasionally accidentally hurt each other. They do like having them for grooming and other purposes. For us, if they came here and had horns or were born here, we let them keep them. But you'll see many of ours don't have them because they came here without horns. For feeding them, 90% of their diet needs to be hay. Now you may go to Tractor Supply and go, I need goat feed, and they will give you a big box of a big bag of pellets. That is going to make them fat because that's what that's for. It's to fatten up goats to eat them. It's not their food. Don't ever take advice from Tractor Supply because those are Walmart employees. They are not animal care professionals. I know it has a big goat on the bag. It's very deceptive, but these are not the people you get this advice from. And I say it because I've heard it half 100 times now. No exaggeration there. Like, oh, that's what they told me at the store was the feed. One, you need to do research on what these animals eat. Don't just go with the 15-year-old at Tractor Supply told you. Sorry, very frustrated about that. But they eat mostly hay. There are a few places to get hay around here. There are Tractor Supplies where the hay is a lot more expensive. You can go to places around Baltimore County to get it. I like to go to Gambrel's, which is about 15 minutes from here. There I can buy hay at about $8 a bale. If I only had a couple goats, I'd only have to get like one thing of hay a week. These guys eat one thing of hay a day because I have 11 goats here and 2 sheep. You got to keep it dry, so we have a little hay shed over there. You do not need a barn to have goats. They do need to have some type of cover. This was our original goat house when we had 2 goats. They can also live in a dog igloo or something like that. We prefer to have a barn though. Barns are great because, for one, we have a hay loft in there if I wanted to keep storing the hay in there. I stopped doing it because, one, I didn't want to lift in there anymore, but because Roosty Pete the rooster kept climbing up in there doing his special crow to tell the girls to lay in there, and I would pull down hay and get hit in the head with eggs. Not fun. But yes. But trying to think of what else here. Oh, requirements and restrictions. Once again, no horns. Has to be a miniature breed. You have to have a way to contain them and keep them in, meaning fencing. This is special goat fencing, big enough to where they can't get their head stuck in it. You can buy this. We used to have more chain link fencing that we used that did work, but this is what we've preferred. Let me see, trying to think of any other requirements. You'll find all the requirements on the last page in the exotics reg for them. Remember that goats are escape artists, truly escape artists, so you got to have a solid pen for them. You'll see that all their play furniture isn't up near the fence, so they can't climb on it and hop out. Once again, ask me how I know. Thinking of other things with them. Oh, a good question is, why would I keep goats, Charles? What are the perks to them? Well, one, they have the temperament of dogs. They're actually really friendly if you raise them to be. Love having them. Like, on top of it, they help us clear brush out very well. We had an outbreak of poison ivy in the bee yard, and they took care of it very easily. I've had a couple of beekeepers we've had to loan them to for the same purpose. They're also really good at cleaning brush around the fences when we need them to. They're a damn good animal for that. Nigerian dwarf goats specifically are a dairy breed. So if you have one lactating, you can produce goat milk, but you need to milk them every day at the same time. And you need to keep up with it. We have never had such discipline, so we've never really milked our goats. The couple times that we had cheese lactating. Yeah, and their manure is actually pretty good too because it really doesn't have a smell. Like, it's very easy to compost. They produce an excess amount of straw. Now, the difference between straw and hay. Hay is when it has the edible bits on it. Straw is what's left over after the edible bits are off. We have a lot of excess straw that we have to compost around here because of that. And it's a pain to clean up. It's the leading thing we have to clean up for these guys. Any goat questions? Oh, another one, predators. Once they are more than 8 pounds, they really don't have many predators. If you have coyotes, that's a perpetual predator for all goats. We do have some of those in Baltimore County and a little bit in Anne Arundel. They're not here in the city. On top of it, a fox will eat one that's below 8 pounds. So if you have babies, you probably want to keep them locked up. But once they're I'd say once they're more than 10 pounds, the fox ain't gonna bother with them because fox wants something they can carry off. So they really prefer your chickens. Dogs are another killer of goats, so stray dogs can be a problem. You gotta have a habitat that can keep stray dogs out. And if you had pygoras, you can get Angora fur from them. Oh, and another thing is, see how they have like the tower and tables and all that, and they have play equipment? Goats are a mountain animal. They want to climb. So giving them stuff they can climb and hang out on is very important. They also do need a place where they can have shade. If this was all sun with like no shade, like they could die of like heat stroke. They gotta have that. We have that shade pavilion. They have their barn. A lot of the time they'll climb under some of their play furniture. Don't depend on a tree doing it, because they can kill all the trees in their habitats. There used to be trees inside this thing. The only one that remains is Big Mulberry right there. And Big Mulberry, which is one of the daughters of Papa Mulberry over there. They love the mulberry leaves, and it's fortuitous that that's in there. But thankfully that's a tree they can't kill. They're really good at killing other trees though. Also, plums and cherries are toxic to them, especially the leaves from the tree. So do not have cherries or cherry trees nearby. All right, any questions about goats before we move to bees? Okay, let's walk. Let's go see some buzzy bees. Hey kids, do you know what honeybees produce? Oh yeah. Yes, you can see them coming and going from their hives here. We have the largest bee yard in the city here with a little over 40 hives on property. The bee yard is about to move over there on the concrete pad. I'm cleaning it up right now to get ready to start doing that move, and I have to move all the hives at night because you don't want the foragers to come back and be like, where'd my home go? But yes, I am primarily a beekeeper that takes a lot of rescue animals. This is really my forte. Beekeeping is a very unique form of animal husbandry because bees are very clockwork creatures. We have been keeping bees for a few thousand years now. We started in ancient Egypt and Nubia. And it's spread all over. And when we refer to beekeeping, we specifically mean keeping honeybees. Specifically, the species Apis mellifera, which is called the European honeybee. There are different breeds of it, like Carnolians and Russians and Italians and stuff like that. But they're all the same bee, and honestly, every hive has some of those genetics in them. All honeybees in the Americas are a domesticated animal. They were brought here. So they are not native, but they're not invasive either. There is a type of bee that produces honey, the stingless honeybee or the Mayan honeybee, because the ancient Mayans, they have a number of gods dedicated to honey. And both honey and cocoa were currencies in the Mayan Empire. So, fun facts of the day. But these guys, I spend about 10 minutes each hive a week during the main season. The main season is from April 1st all the way to July 4th. And then about every 2-3 weeks I peek in on them. Every time I open them up, I'm checking, are they queen right? Meaning, do they have a laying queen? Oh yeah, she's gonna follow us the whole day. Yeah, she's a lovey bird. She's like, you forgot me. On top of that, we harvest honey here around 4th of July. They're a magnificent creature. You can see on our education wall, we talk a little bit about their brood cycle, which their brood cycle is how I diagnose most issues in the hive if I'm having them. Because once again, they're clockwork creatures, and like, let's say I open it up and there's no queen. Well, I can look at the age of the brood currently in there, which is their babies, and go, well, there's no eggs, so she hasn't been here in more than 24 hours. The larva is this age, so it's been this many days. Okay, there's no larva, it's all capped cells, because all cells are capped on day 7. So she's been gone at least a week. And I can calculate about when I'm gonna have her back, because the new queens will emerge on day 16. They'll wait around for about 2-3 days chilling out and doing their original orientation flights. She'll take about a week to 2 weeks to mate, and then I'll be able to look at my calendar and determine, okay, I should see eggs about this time. They're a fascinating animal to have because you can get honey from them. You can get beeswax from them, which is honestly one of the best byproducts that an animal makes. From every wood polish to, I'd say every good polish has beeswax in it. The best candles are made from it. It used to be a much more needed industrial product. In fact, that's why people really kept bees, for that beeswax. Yes. Propolis is another one which people love in the alternative medicine industry, along with pollen that they collect. You can send pollen catchers and propolis catchers inside your hives. Each hive has about 50,000 bees in the main season. And once again, they are a truly amazing superorganism. And remember, most bees in the kingdom of bees are solitary. There's over 10,000 species of bee out there. Only about half a dozen collect honey. We do have a few native pollinator houses around here as well for them. And fun fact about bees, bees are wasps that went vegetarian about 150 million years ago. That's when the first pollinating plants showed up, which were conifers, which pollinate by wind. Once again, very fascinating creatures. Any questions about the buzzy bees?
Are they going extinct?
No, they're not going extinct, but the rate, we can produce the hives faster than they die, but the attrition rate is ridiculous. The ones that are really in a lot of trouble as far as extinction are a lot of the native pollinators. Like, the natives are really suffering, which, come here, I'll show you something. These are some of the very common native pollinators out there, and a lot of them are in big trouble. Because a lot of the things affecting the honeybee are affecting them. For example, monocultures in the agriculture world will have miles of blueberries in fields. They can't live off single sources. So even beekeepers don't want to bring their bees there anymore. So for every so many acres, they need to set aside another acre for brush to grow and other sources to grow. Other ones are pesticides, specifically neonicotinoids, which are a byproduct in pesticides. They did replace DDT, which was worse, but we know they're bad and we're trying to get away from them. Even Monsanto agrees with their studies. Yes, they're bad for pollinators, but not nearly as bad as everybody else's data. That's some bullshit. But neonicotinoids, they are a big deal, and we are trying to phase them out. Maryland's been one of the leading states for that. On top of it, the way we do pesticides is very problematic, because when we make GMOs, it's not a lot of the time like making things like golden rice and making better food. It's making strains that can resist higher levels of pesticides. So we're hitting them with harder and harder stuff, and these native pollinators and these guys just can't deal with that. So it's a bad way of doing GMOs. There's also habitat destruction. We mow down all the clover and destroy all the local flora and fauna that they need. And then there's one of the big contributors, in fact it's the key cause of what they call hive collapse phenomenon, the varroa mite, which is an Asiatic pest from our honeybee's cousin, Apis cerana. The varroa mite's very deadly. Every hive has them in the United States. They're like the herpes of the bee world. Every hive has a little bit of them. we have to treat them every year multiple times, which is why our attrition rate is so low here. Like, we only lost one hive the entire winter out of the 16 I manage. You could lose up to a third of them, and that be regular because of varroa mites. We rotate the different treatments for them so they don't become immune to them. And as I was saying, native pollinators, here's a lot of the common ones of butterflies, moths, native bees, which are solitary bees a lot of the time. You have different beetles which pollinate, hummingbirds, wasps that pollinate, and you even have fruit bats, which, if you ate a banana recently, was probably pollinated by a fruit bat. Like, there are all sorts of pollinators outside of the insect realm. So it's a fascinating subject, and native pollinators are the ones that are really having trouble. And they're a very diverse group. So, very important thing to watch. Honeybees are also very unique in that they kind of have 3 biological sexes, because the queens and the workers are considered the females of the group, because a fertilized egg will always become a queen or a worker. The thing that makes it different is that when the bees are feeding them in the beginning, when they're larvae, every bee gets royal jelly, which is an enzyme that comes from the worker's head. Every one of them gets royal jelly for the first few days. The diet stops though at like day 3 for workers, but for queens will continue. That's when they want to make queens. But the drones, which are considered the males with their big dumb eyes to see queens during mating flights, these guys have half the chromosomes that the others do because they're made asexually by the queen. So every unfertilized egg will become a drone. They're the way of passing their DNA on to other hives because they mate with queens of different hives. Like, it's nature's wild. I'll just put it that way. It's very different throughout the way that everybody does things. It's very similar to some of their distant cousins, ants and termites and wasps. But even they do things very differently, and sometimes even among bees and wasps it's a little different. But all of them have different numbers of chromosomes. It's wild. And over here we even talk about bee communication. Sadly, some of my mural pieces are starting to peel here. But this talks about the 2 ways that honeybees communicate. One is through pheromones, which are scents. Everything from the queen's come here pheromone, or the pheromone she's constantly letting out, telling everybody everything's okay, down to the alarm pheromone that workers will let out when they're like, hey, get ready to defend. That's why smoke works. We put it in the air and they can't smell it. Just put a little smoke in the air and then they just stay calm as cucumbers. The other way that they communicate, which is this circle up here, is through dancing. They do the waggle dance, which based on the current orientation of the sun, they tell them how far to go and what landmarks to use to get there. Like, so that they can go up to 2 miles away and tell them where something is 2 miles from here. It's truly fascinating, and once bees find something, the rest of them will. In fact, once we harvest honey from boxes, we'll set the boxes out, a couple bees find them, and then within minutes, thousands of bees descend on the boxes and clean out all the extra honey in them, and that way we can store them and we have less of a worry of rodents and stuff like that. They clean everything up for us. Any other honeybee questions?
By taking the honey, like are we taking anything from them? Should we not have as much honey, or do you think that?
Always be conservative about what you take, and in the first season you probably won't get honey because that's their building here. Like, let them have it, and there's no reason to ever be greedy with honeybees, because honey isn't like a tomato. Tomato will rot on me eventually, the honey never will. So, you know, why take it in autumn from them? Let them take it through winter, have everything they need, and then you can take it in spring when the nectar's flowing and they can't starve. There's no reason to ever be greedy with them. We're always very conservative about what we take, and then in autumn we're kind of balancing things out where I'll take some of the surplus in another hive and move them over, because giving them honey's best. We'll also give them supplementary feed, and what we call emergency feed, where we put like fondant on some of the hives in winter on the top, or we'll even put a candy board up there where they'll eat it. Like it, you should never have starving bees. You're bad at what you do if that's the problem. But yeah, you should always be very conservative about what you take. There's no reason to rob them. Like, all of them are bred also to produce significantly more honey than they need. Because remember, the Italian the Italian honeybee evolved up in the northern Alps in Italy. So very short springs and summers. So they learned to produce a lot of honey. And once they left those regions, they produce a hell of a lot of it still, much more than they'll ever need. Yeah. Any other honeybee questions? Okay. Now the more boring ones, pigs. The city does allow pigs here, specifically potbelly pigs and no other type of pig. There are other ones that you might be able to get away with, such as kune-kunes, which are considered a miniature pig. By the way, a miniature pig is 250 pounds at least. That's a miniature. These pigs can easily get up to 600 to 800 pounds. They're a very heavy animal. Potbelly pigs, in the way that the reg is written, is more to have them like a dog. And you can't just have them out in the winter. They got to actually have a shelter that either they have a lot of pigs to cuddle with or something that warms them. They're not, the way the reg is written isn't meant to be a farm pig. I'd advise you not to keep pigs that way in the city. I don't have much to say about the, let me see here. What else did I have in my notes about pigs? Yeah, so pigs, I wouldn't have them. Another one to consider are rabbits. You can have rabbits in the city, whether it's a house rabbit where it has a litter box and everything, or you have meat rabbits which are kept in a hutch. I feel most hutches are cruel, and if I were to do them here, I'd do it like Kinder Farm Park does, where they have like the equivalent of a chicken coop for them and then a run where they can come outside and dig in that, and it's cemented under or wired under where they can't go through it. But the way they are is actually rather cruel, the way with hutches, because rabbits like to interact and they like to play with toys like a cat, and it's I'm all for doing it more that way. Now with meat rabbits, you probably don't want them moving around as much, but you can buy breeds that put on weight very easily and keep them more humane if you're going to butcher them and keep them that way. Remember this, that you do need to segregate them by sex, or they will reproduce quickly. There was a really good YouTube video that goes over an animal vet up in the Yukon, and she showed up at this lady's petting zoo, and she found one of her rabbits suddenly had babies, and she's like, uh-oh, there's a boy in here. And they go over and they try to find the boy, because it's actually a little hard to tell their gender sometimes. And not only did she find the one boy eventually, but she found out of the 12 rabbits there, 11 were pregnant.
Oh my gosh.
Including the one that just had the babies was pregnant again. They reproduced, so she went from having 12 rabbits to 60 very quickly. All because of one boy in there, which I'm sure he was so happy. I bet he had great self-esteem. Feeding rabbits, they primarily eat Timothy hay. A lot of the same hay that the goats do. That's primarily their diet. If you keep them as a house pet, they do prolifically love to eat wires and baseboards. Ask me how I know. Had house rabbits for quite a few years. If you have them in a hutch, they have very specific requirements for the hutches here in the city. I would read that in the exotics regs. They do need to be covered, the hutches and that, so they don't get rained on. You'd think that people would know that automatically, but not with some of the cases I got called over. On top of it, they have their own predators as well. Raccoons, possums, different birds of prey, and foxes. Remember, raccoons can do latches and stuff like that. Wouldn't be the first time in the city a raccoon undid the latch on a bunny hutch and killed all of them. Birds of prey are another one if you let your rabbit free range a little bit, which some people do. Foxes are another one for that. I'll say this, on any habitat, never use chicken wire. Chicken wire is really good at keeping chickens in. It's bad at keeping predators out. You can watch YouTube videos of fox just ramming right against chicken wire and bursting it. They can go right through it like it's nothing. Chicken wire is not going to protect anything, and I see it on too many chicken runs and rabbit habitats. Some of the perks are they make great manure for compost. Amazing manure from compost. If you have Angora rabbits, you can harvest fur from them. Please trim them regularly and don't wait till they're blind from all the fur that they have and neglect them or getting overheated. Be kind to your animal. Also, meat is a very popular thing you can get from them. Rabbit meat is a lot like poultry. Anything you do with poultry, you can do with rabbit meat. One of my friends who got into meat rabbits, she fell in love with all 4 of them and named them after different types of meats. She had one named mutton, one named poultry, one named venison or Venny, who was her favorite. I kind of chuckle about it now. Horses. Yep, there are horse permits in the city. They exist for the city's Arabbers. Does anyone know what an Arabber is? Woo. Yes, Arabbers are a very old, unique tradition in Baltimore. In fact, it's one of the oldest equestrian traditions in the United States, specifically black equestrian traditions. They are the fruit vendors that exist here in Baltimore that bring the carts with the horses. The Arabbers used to routinely go down the street singing what are called haulers. Like, get out your pan, it's the fish man. People would regularly buy their fruits and fish from them. There are only a handful of them left. We do have some of them down here, Mr. Fruit and his group, which bring their horses down for autumn fair where the kids can ride them and that. You can find them in Federal Hill. A very old, great tradition in the city, and we may not see them for much longer. But the Arabbers, they are at Carlsbad Stables and a couple of the remaining stables in the city. Those permits are for them. Don't think you'll get one if you're not an Arabber. On top of it, the last point on here are 501c3 nonprofit organization exemptions, where you can apply to animal control and get waivers for like geese and sheep and equines and stuff like that. You have to have an educational purpose, and you're going to have to put together a good package showing the habitat, shelter, diet, ambulatory methods, meaning like if this animal's sick, can I get it out of here? How am I going to move them? Which for like a horse, for example, or a pony, got to have some type of cart for that. You can't just throw them in the back of your car. You also got to show their care schedule, such as grooming and hoof trimming and shoeing. If they're an animal that needs shoed like a horse, you got to present that stuff to them. Once again, you have to be a nonprofit and they have to have an educational purpose. I fought tooth and nail to get that exception set up. So you're welcome. We also, should you have any problems, I would consult the exotic animal reg for Baltimore City or talk to the University Extension for Maryland's university system. The extension office is a great one because they can tell you a lot about that animal specifically. Should you be looking for a waiver, I talk to the extension first because they can help you put together a great packet and help educate you fully on it. If you wanted to get sheep, for example, if you wanted to sing the song Beep Beep I'm a Sheep and you needed sheep for it, yeah, it's always there to help you. But once again, there's the exoticers. Any questions about any of the other animals we discussed here, or questions in general? Going once. Tinkerbell's like, yeah, here's my question. Where's my corn? Go give me corn. Yeah, that's why she's followed me around. She's like, I want corn. You're a terrible bird, Tinkerbell. I pulled her off the roost at night, which is the best time to give them medicine or treat them or dust them for mites. At night, they'll be on the roost. You can just pull them right off. Chasing a chicken, you always look ridiculous doing. There's no need to. Just wait for them roosting at night. I pull her down, and she's been boss chicken for 2 years now. And I pull her down. She's sturdy and just muscle. And I'm like, yeah, you got a long raid ahead of you, babe. You're gonna keep running this yard. You're a big, tough bird. And I think a guy showed up in a truck one day, and he's like, hey, take this pullet, and she was this little thing. He's like, yeah, I found it walking around in my neighborhood. And I took her and quarantined her, which you should with new birds. One more thing too. If you introduce a new chicken or a new bunny to the others, they may immediately try to kill it or bully it. Best way to introduce them, especially if it's a small area and they're not free ranging, is to have them in like a dog crate so they see each other and you bond them in. Chickens will see a new chicken as an invader. That's the way they perceive them. If you have a bad bullying situation, you may need to consider adopting them out. There are sprays you need to immediately put on wounds to keep the chickens from pecking wounds on each other. And once again, free-range birds keep a lot of that bullshit from happening, because if they're getting bullied, it's only when they're in there in the morning. Like the rest of the day, they'll just go stay away from those birds. We have a nice free-range setup here, but not everybody can have that. If you have a little lot in the city, that works. If you want to get more chickens or want to set up a bigger thing, talk to one of the community gardens and see if you can have a partnership with them. You can talk with them and be like, hey, I want to build this here. We'll set up this, and I'll keep a nice locked habitat. You can put a lock on the door that has a key code on it. That way you can have certain people check on your birds now and then, like if you're on vacation. Like, there's great ways of automating it. Like, feel free to come back and see how we do it. And we can even sometimes talk to community gardens for you. But there are good ways of doing things that we've pioneered here. Like, I'm very happy to be building the next chicken habitat, because that one we're actually going to turn into a hydroponics barn.
Wow.
Yeah, like I got to put in better joists on the roof in there, the hangers. But the new habitat will be in the corner over there, and that habitat, I'm going to have the floor slightly sloping to the side, and I'm going to put little spacers under it to lift it 1/4 of an inch off the ground. I'll put wire fabric on it so mice can't slide through. That way drainage always just drains everything out of there. Like, I learned a lot about that habitat when I first built it, because it was a little inspired by Kinder Farm Parks, but I built a better one. And this time around, I got a number of things I'm going to do better. Like, I'm going to use hardware cloth so wild birds can't go in there and try to eat chicken feed and bring communicable disease like avian flu to my birds. It's going to be good stuff. Like, you learn a little bit each time you build a piece of infrastructure. What could I have done better?
If we were able to get a group of some people to come, do you guys have open hours?
Yes, we do. Especially if you're another nonprofit organization, we'll just set up a tour and give you one. And just contact us. We'll set you up for success. Yes. In fact, if you wanted a chicken coop, one's about to retire it from here. I'm trying to think of how I'd get it out of that building, frankly. But we got funding to get 2 over easy coops, which are like the Rolls Royce of coops.
Oh.
And we're going to have the new pad put in 2 weeks. In fact, on Tuesday, they're going to come in and put the asphalt sidewalks around the garden in. Yeah, it's been a long time coming. There's a building being built here this year. There's a $400,000 building with 288 compliant bathrooms, a kitchen which doubles as my honey house.
Oh.
It's been a long time coming. This is the oldest structure in the garden, and I have to trim the legs on this. And I'm going to take the murals off because they're screwed on here. I'm going to put 2 long 2x6 boards on it so we can lift this son of a bitch and move it to another part of the garden.
Oh my God.
Because I don't want to tear down the building because it's been here so long.
Yeah.
Oh.
Otherwise, it's got to go, and I really like it. I really don't want to see it go.
Yeah.
The artwork is
Yeah.
Yeah, so in fact, my favorite one is this one here. My bee yard is finally moving after 10 years of being here, and it's moving across over there to the old compost area. And this is the view I would see every summer. And like if I can't move the shed, I got to cut all the murals off of it so I can preserve them in the new building.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure with a sawzall and being careful, I could cut every one of them out and repurpose them elsewhere. But one of my favorite artists did it. Maura Dwyer, one of my favorite mic artists, she did the goat barn some years ago. There's also a mural of Edie the sheep and Ed the goat fighting and headbutting on the back of the building. Yeah, it's good stuff. Like, I like that there's different art styles all over the building because a community garden shouldn't be homogenous. Like it should have, it's a community, so it should have a bunch of different art styles, and it should be kind of discordant. The building itself will have hexagon windows, and it's going to be neat. It'll have BFAX on the side of the building, and I'm very excited for it. It breaks ground on June 3rd. But we have a lot. We have over $450,000 of infrastructure that's going in this summer. Yes. We also have a 4,000 square foot native garden on the other side of the fence. And on the other side of that fence, you'll see all fruit trees where the public can come up and just take fruit. Yeah, the peaches, sadly, they don't even let them get ripe anymore. They're like, I'm going to pull all the peaches. Like, I always wait for them to get vine ripened because it's the sweetest and the most delicious peach you'll ever have.